to today's webinar. We're going to be talking about job seeking during a pandemic. It's the third webinar in a series of webinars by Mr. Andrea Boccuni, and this is the final one of this semester. If you are interested in hosting similar events, working on similar events, you can always contact us. I will drop the email in the chat box. We are recruiting from 15th February on for the next semester. And yeah, if you want more information about Rotaract here Leuven, then contact us. This webinar will also be recorded and it will be posted on our YouTube channel, which already has the first two webinars on them as well. So if you missed one of them and want to look back on it, it will be there for you to find.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for having me again. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Indeed, this is the third of a series of webinars we'll be organizing in the past few weeks. We've been touching upon different topics that were of your interest. In the first one, we talk about lobbying in the European Union. In the second one, we talk about the role of corporation and how to approach and how to deal with them. And now we want to somehow close the circle. We want to connect the dots. And we want to see how to, how many ways there are to approach job seeking, how has Corona changed anything, if in any ways, and perhaps I will provide some food for thoughts on how job seeking might have transformed itself because of the situation and what are some common mistakes and how to overcome them to have a better shot. This class is specifically intended for students and job seekers in the entry or junior level. That doesn't mean that what we're going to discuss will not be interesting for other people at all. But I would start most of my conversation assuming that you might have access to an internship, to a thesis, or activities that are still related in the curriculum of a university. But of course, many of these elements will be quite general, so you might be able to connect in any case. As mentioned, this webinar is being recorded, so don't worry, you will be seeing most of this. We will also be sharing slides. And also, as much as is possible, given the condition and the situation, I will try to keep it interactive. So should you feel comfortable with, just feel free to turn on your camera. We'd love to see you. And also keep your finger close to your mic button because we might be asking for your opinion at a certain point, actually very soon. So feel free to share, connect. It's really important that we learn from each other's experience because that's the best way to learn something new. Quickly on myself, my name is Andrea Boccuni, originally from Italy. I'm working as a Senior Governmental Affairs at BASF, which is a big German chemical company, and I mostly deal with agri-food related issues. Before joining BASF, before joining the corporate sector, I actually been working in the European Parliament as an assistant and also in the European Commission in DG Sante, the Directorate General for Food Safety and Health, for some months. Also, I'm absolutely interested and fascinated by the world of lobbying, as you might have figured by now, and I never lose a chance to teach or to share some of the ideas I have on lobbying and corporate strategy in general. Next to that, I've been working as a corporate lobbyist for around 6 years before joining the corporate sector in the agri-food life science sector. I also have a strong capacity in working with NGOs. I've been founding an NGO myself. The NGO I work with is called The Good Lobby, and in this capacity, I gave the first class of this webinar series to talk about lobbying and how civic participation influenced the world of lobbying and vice versa. But what I think is most interesting for you and what is most important for this exercise is that for the past 2 years, I've been working as a mentor in a Belgian NGO called Team for Jobs, which is an association that connects people that are looking for jobs with mentors. And I had the chance and surely the privilege of supporting and helping some of the students that wanted to enter the job market, specifically when it comes to the Brussels bubble. So job related to the European institutions, job related to consultancy, corporate sector, with a strong policy and institutional flavor. But that's already enough about me. And I think it would be very interesting to get to hear from you. So I kindly invite you to go on menti.com and to put down the code you see right here, 4838-855, and we move to the presentation. So a few seconds to just give you the chance to connect to menti.com. You can do so via your smartphone, or you can simply open a new tab on your desk and connect from there. I would like to start with a very general question. As a matter of fact, all these questions would be quite general, but the first question I would ask you, having in mind that you might be as well coming straight from university or at an entry level, whether you feel prepared to enter the job market. To those who said not or no or not really, would you feel like sharing why? Feel free to unmute your mic and jump in the conversation if you feel like. Anyone?
Hi, can I go? Is it all right?
Hi, Fatima. Yes, please.
Thank you. So basically, I'm actually in my second bachelor's year, and I'm just like here to observe mainly. But my main hindrance right now is, I think, language, because in terms of French, I lived in France for 4 years, but because I studied mostly in English institutions, and now I'm also doing an English bachelor's at the BUB. So I have some basic knowledge of French, but it's not enough that I would feel confident enough that I can put like a good level on my CV, and feel confident that I will be seen prospectively by an employer. Yep.
Okay, thank you, Fatima. So it's mostly about language skill and the fact that indeed Belgium has 3 official languages, and that can scare some people off.
Yep.
Anyone else feels like sharing? Why do you feel ready for it, in fact? For those who have
Yeah, hi, I'd like to share.
Please.
Yeah, I think one of the problems would be a work permit. Mm-hmm. So I have been applying quite vigorously, if I should say so, but I'm not moving past the automatic rejection phase. So I believe I'm ready, but I don't know what's wrong, or I don't know how to improve.
Okay, so this is more on the side of administrative or bureaucratic hurdles related to work permit. And
I assume it's the work permit. I don't know whether maybe it could be my CV also.
Okay.
Excuse me?
Please.
Yeah, it's the same thing with me. And the thing is, like, I wrote not really. It's because I am really underconfident because of the fact I don't speak their native language fluently. Like, I understand a bit, but not very fluently. I can speak that. And whenever like I'm applying for a job or anything, the first thing, like after a few days, they just send me an email saying that, well, your application cannot be moved forward with like no reason or whatsoever. So I mean, I don't know what I'm doing wrong here.
Okay. Perfect. Anyone else? I also see a PhD candidate in the bunch. Feeling like sharing?
Yeah, well, after my master's, I was quite sure about what I was going to do or what I could do. I also had some job offers. Then I went to do a PhD here in Leuven. And now I'm not sure if my specific topic will be useful for the field I intend to
What's your
work
specific
for.
topic?
Stochastic process scheduling.
Jesus.
It's an operations research topic.
If you don't get a job, I don't know who gets it. Okay, thank you for that. Just let me quickly react on those. I think it's very fair to
Sorry, can I also share with something?
Please.
I also finished my PhD within like 3 months or so, and my PhD is in biology. And when I scroll down the requirements, I'm not quite sure if I'm eligible, because it's quite overwhelming, and I have no idea if the field of I feel like the field of my study is important, but the experience that I got at my university might not be enough.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Very well. So thank you for sharing. Let me quickly address Fatma and Sen. I know I will not be particularly popular with the Belgium in this conversation, but to try to relieve some of your concern, I've been living in Belgium for 7 years and I don't speak professional French, Dutch, or German. That didn't stop me to get the job I wanted when I wanted. With this, I'm not saying that everything is fantastic and this is La La Land, but this is also to say that Brussels or Belgium, because of its specific and cosmopolitan nature, might offer opportunities, especially in bigger corporations or in job related to institutions that might go well past the specific Belgian requirement for languages. A specific discussion goes with work permit. I must admit that I also in the past, we've been working with people from all over the world, and the administrative burdens that are connected to a work permit can be sometimes difficult to manage, not as much as for the employer, but from the admin point of view. So sometimes Belgium admin can be slow or overburdening with costs, and that might disincentive some employer to work with non-EU citizen. But there is also the opposite. Sometimes there are certain positions that are specific for non-EU citizens that could be interesting. As for the two PhD guys, I will like to keep the questions right there. We will go back after this this couple of slides, because I think it might be interesting to share with you some tips. Thank you for that. Question number 2. What are your biggest concerns when you think about work? Mm-hmm. Fair enough. That's also a very good one. Interesting. Okay, I think it's very interesting from this small bunch of answer. I feel that there are some that relate to lack of certain skills. So how are you fit for this job market? Others relate more on the relations you establish with your employer in terms of if you will find the right one, how is it possible to find the right one? And also in terms of work-life balance, which I think is a very fair point. The language point comes back. This perhaps is still connected to the skills lack. Okay. Okay, very good. Thank you again. Next question for you. Has COVID-19 changed the job market? And if yes, how? I ask this question because obviously certain professions are absolutely under pressure because of COVID. I'm thinking about the HoReCa sector, and I'm thinking about many other sectors that are connected to supply and purchases. It is also fair to say that for some of you in this virtual room, assuming that some of you or the majority of or the bulk of this group might be still working business administration, might be fair to say that these jobs are not so at risk as other jobs are. From my humble point of view, which is the perspective of public affairs in Brussels for European policies, I would say that COVID has changed the job market for the better, for example. So there is more flexibility, there are more hirings than the past, there is a higher or stronger need for certain skills that were not there before, including digital communication and advocacy. Competition was higher, fair enough. Yeah. Of course, now we are brutally generalizing. Obviously, some sector being completely devastated by COVID and some others to a lesser extent. But of course, this is just to break the ice and see and try to understand what you think about it. Okay, very well. Let's move on to the area of how do you apply and which tools you use to appeal to potential employers. Specifically, have you ever sent a spontaneous application? Okay. Thank you for picking this up. I believe one of the most crucial elements that might distinguish you from the crowd, especially when looking for jobs you're really interested in, might be a fair use of spontaneous applications. I will get back to this point later on during the slide. But this is, I also wanted to check and test to see, you know, what's the use of this spontaneous application and how familiar you could ever be with those. So the majority of you has sent spontaneous application in the past. Now let's break free. Let's be creative for a second. Can you name 3 organizations you like to work for? Mm-hmm. I found absolutely fascinating why Deloitte scores so high with people. Have you ever worked at Deloitte, guys? This place is incredible. Many consultancies, though, are very interesting. And fair enough, also many tech companies. Thank you for BASF. Very good. Okay. I am absolutely surprised by the fact that none of you had mentioned any NGOs or civil society organization. Usually this is the answer I received in most cases. Okay, fair enough. Edmond de Rothschild, interesting. Okay, so I assume that the next question will be actually not so relevant, because the next question I will ask you if you would be interested in working in a corporation, and if yes, which one, but the majority of answers here refer to corporations. So I think that will be enough, and I will move back to our presentation. Very well, so thank you for your comment. Would you have any questions, comment, or any burning elements to share before we go into the bulk of this lecture? Very well. Okay, so
I'm sorry. I thought we were supposed to raise a hand, or like just didn't want to put you in. Could I please make a comment or a question?
Of course, please.
Thank you. So you mentioned that the language barrier hasn't really been a big hindrance in you breaking into the job market. And so my question was, how do you find, how did you, when you personally began applying for jobs, and how did you get information to apply for these jobs? And also because, for example, I'm studying social sciences. So there's also personal confusion, because I'm trying to specialize in political sciences, but it's not particularly seen as a very viable choice of degree, and exacerbated by the fact that my department doesn't provide traineeships, which I recently found out. So that's why I'm pushing to go on Erasmus. But yes, I just wanted to ask, in such a scenario, how would you find information for jobs
I can definitely relate to you, Fatma. Thank you for sharing. I am also a social scientist. I study political science, and language barrier has been somehow a hurdle. The easy answer is that there are so many good jobs that do not require the three Belgian official languages, that you would just have, you know, plenty of choices. These include multinational, these include big corporation, that include European institution, national institution, or international institutions, big consultancies. So I would say that obviously in the narrow scope of international or policy-related organization, there is a fair share of internationalism, which wouldn't make your lack of language skill particularly evident. And also, from an employer point of view, if you're the right candidate, you will be hired regardless of your language skill, unless those skills are absolutely instrumental or functional to the job you're going to do. Now, please just bear with me. This is a brutal generalization, but trying to understand where you're coming from and the fact that you're studying social sciences, I just want to reassure you that there are sufficient elements out there for you to have a fair choice. Now, what I'm going to share with you are some thoughts on what has been my humble experience in mentoring with students and young professionals in the past 2 years. And these are some of the common elements that I've seen in all the mentees I had the chance to work with. But in general, it's also something I got from students and early entry stage professionals. I principally realized that university doesn't prepare you to job market. This is not necessarily two faults of universities. They were, meant for a different job market. The job market has also dramatically transformed itself in the past 10 years. So it was a bit difficult to catch up. But what I realized is that there is very little understanding of how job seeking works, because it is in fact a process. You can get better at it. There is also very little understanding of how to, the practical side of it, how to write a good CV, how to conduct a successful job interview, and how to look for organizations. I was really touched by your comment on, I wouldn't know how to find employers, because this is one of the common answers I received. How do you get to understand what's out there? Can Europe Brussels be the only source of potential information? And some elements like that. I will go now through a list of, sorry for my wording, I should have said common traits rather than mistake. These are not mistake per se, but I do think that there is some lack of awareness on how they work. I will go through through them one by one. If you have any comment or question, don't hesitate to ask. At the end of this part, I will also open up the floor for Q&A. So if you have another comment, keep it, and then feel free to share when you want. Very well, let's start from the top. I think one of the most, so starting from the beginning of the job seeking process. So how do you prepare? How do you set your elements before going and approaching potential employers? What I realized is that somehow CVs are a bit vague and not specific. This is because sometimes people feel the urge to fill in the CV as much as it's possible without trying to, highlights the elements that makes you unique. Sometimes it's easy to find CV that just slam very vague and non-specific references. I think one of the most common is on IT skills, the fact that many people refer to Microsoft Office or to other broad general software without having a particularly strong command on some of those softwares, or by just having a general understanding. Also, it's interesting to add to CVs links and hyperlinks, because the majority of people that will read your CV, they will do so either via smartphone or by computer, and that gives you an extra chance to add further information. Or perhaps the fact that you could also include some personal elements of yours, such as hobbies and other kind of activities that really can help having your CV stands out. Also, especially if you're an entry-level position, you're not necessarily expected to have a fantastic CV. If you're applying for an internship or a traineeship, it's okay to have a normal CV. But perhaps something that could be interesting is to make it very specific. How do you make a CV specific? By including numbers, by including elements that will help someone understand what was your added value in a specific process. Let's imagine you had an internship for 3 months in an office and you've been working on some briefings. Why wouldn't you link the briefings you've been working on? Why don't you explain me how big was the team you were working in? Why don't you give me a sense of how big was the budget that team was working in, and how you supported the activity of a specific process? I realize that explaining how to move to a good CV requires a bit more than that, so forgive me for cutting short on these elements. If you have further question on that one, I can address them in a separate moment. Also, sometimes I think there are some common traits in how people write cover letters. Specifically, I think that sometimes people write cover letter as if it was a CV in words. So you would be basically explaining what you'll be doing on the CV, but you're explaining it in a paragraph. And also here you see those vague statements that you will find somewhere in the, online on Google. I'm a perfect fit for your team, or having studies political science, I will be a great addition to your team. This is not bad in and out of itself, but what it's showing is that very few people do some serious studying on the employer or on specific companies. So let's imagine you are applying for the Brussels office of Google, let's imagine. So perhaps a cover letter is actually an opportunity to do some background research on what it's like to be in the Brussels office of Google by checking, for example, the number of employees, by checking the task or the activities that that office is carrying on, by connecting with some of the priorities that an office of that kind could be interested in, and then perhaps to be able to connect and to talk to some of the current employees of a company in order to gather some extra information and some extra intelligence. Of course, this is not possible to do all the times, especially if you're working with a high number of applications. It might be difficult to tailor and fine-tune cover letters to each possible employers. But with those employers that you really feel strongly about, it should be visible in the cover letter. Another common trait that I see in people looking for jobs is that there is little awareness on how to follow up. So let's imagine that you've been sending an application. Very often I get the feeling that people feel frustrated, rightfully so, by the fact that they have no information about an ongoing application. You sent an application, you have no idea when they're going to answer back, you have no idea whether the application is being considered. Well, this is something you can do something about. A rule of thumb way of dealing with that is that after 48 hours you send an application, especially if it's a spontaneous application, it's good practice to follow up, either via phone or via email. And that gives you an extra chance to enter in conversation with your potential employer and to see how to move forward. Of course, it might not be always easy to address HR because sometimes, or most of the cases, your application will go to HR. And that gives you an opportunity or perhaps incentives of connecting with the senior or the top management straight away to ask what about a specific application. Some people feel uncomfortable in contacting an employer during a recruitment process. I would say that this is also the norm. From the point of view of an employer, it's always interesting to see people coming at you if it's the right CV, if it's the right cover letter. So also the fact that not many people do follow-ups might, leave too much to the process and make you feel like you're not in control and you're still pending this information and you feel quite frustrated. Another thing is that usually there is a low amount of applications. When I ask people how are they dealing with their job seeking, they will say, I haven't received any responses yet. And then I will ask, okay, how many applications have you sent? And then we'll say like 6. I think it is, job seeking is an art, it's not really a science, but it should be balanced between quality and quantity. So of course you should be looking for jobs that you're really, really interested in, but on the other hand, it's important to give you the broadest possible view on all those possibilities. A good average would be to be able to send 20 applications a day. So raising up the bar of your game. If you're able to send 20 applications, including spontaneous application a day, it means that in 2 weeks, 2 working weeks, you've been sending 200 emails. And if you follow up 48 hours on each of those 200 emails by large numbers, you greatly increase your chance of receiving an answer you will be satisfied with. If you send 200 applications, maybe 70% will go off, but that will still give you 30 companies that could be interested. Maybe 10 are happy to have an interview with you. Maybe 5 will give you a contract and 2 will hire you. So there is also a certain level of, to show your assertiveness in the process by being able to send many applications and being able to follow them with follow-up in suit so that you can be in control of the job seeking process. And then another point that I think is really important is a general lack of information on the market. And that perhaps connects with your comment of, I don't know how to find good employers. I don't know what's out there. I agree with you. Nobody tells you how to look for jobs. Nobody tells you how to look for employers or companies. And if you're not paying attention on that specific process, you might never going out looking for companies. Nobody goes out looking for companies. So that actually creates an extra element. So one thing is to prepare for an application. And another thing is to get to know your market and be strong on the market you're interested in. For example, after having looked for many jobs, I know with a certain degree of certainty, how is it to work in Brussels as a lobbyist? I know what's the value of my market. I know what's happening in my sector. I know how much a lobbyist takes in a corporation. I know how much a lobbyist takes in a trade association. I know how much a lobbyist takes in France, just to give you an example. Some of the exercise that usually I go through with my mentees in a way to stretch and to increase the spectrum of applicants or application that you might be interested in is to do a stakeholder map. For those of you who have been doing marketing, this could be a very easy concept, but the idea is that you purposefully take time to study the applications and the opportunities out there. So let's imagine you want to send 200 emails in a month. Why not be, looking for 30 companies you'd like to work for, and then 30 consultancies you'd like to work on, and then mapping 30 members of the European Parliament you'd like to work with, and then mapping 10 NGOs, and then continue with another 100. If you stress the studying moment, there is a beautiful element of serendipity. You might be finding things you were not expecting to find. Perhaps with the two PhD guys that are following us, perhaps since you've been so busy with your PhD, you didn't have enough time to check, how many biotech companies are in Flanders, from startup to SMEs to corporation to big multinational companies. For those of you studying business, of course, we all know about the big fours, but how about all the other hundreds of less known fours? How about consultancies? A good example is if you go on lobbyfacts.eu, which is an online tool from Transparency International, you see in the second page the list of the 100 consultancy working in Brussels. That gives you space, that gives you a view on a market you might not have a chance to know before. Another point, sometimes, and this is an answer that I get very often, that's why I was surprised not to see many NGOs in the companies you'd like to work for. Often I also find ideological position, which there's absolutely nothing wrong in having a position or having a certain set of values, especially when you work for someone, but that could somehow limit your view on what's available. For example, I've been working with some juniors who really didn't want to work for anything else but an institution and an NGO. Absolutely fine with me, no problem. But if you don't really know how the private sector works, for example, you might be lacking many opportunities. The private sector is roughly between 70 and 80% of any organizations or company out there. And they don't usually go out and promote. So you either have to be very knowledgeable of your very niche sector to know all the players in the field, or you need to spend some time in studying that. So that's also an element that adds complexity to the job seeking process, but on another hand, it also creates opportunities. By knowing who's out there, you can better create a trajectory that will bring you far away. Let's imagine you really want to work for the United Nations. Fantastic. If you see yourself in the United Nations in 5 years, what jobs could I pile up in the road to that experience that will strengthen your profile? Well, perhaps I can do 1 year as an assistant in the European Parliament, and then I can move in a consultancy and learn about the policies, and then move to a think tank and to further increase my understanding, and then I can move to a corporation, and then I can move to. So if you don't have a chance to really study the actors that compose this big stage in the job market, you will feel limited. You will feel that there is nothing you like, no one wants you, no one is interested in your skills, but perhaps the thing is that you haven't looked sufficiently enough, and perhaps there is somewhere out there an employer that really needs someone with exactly your profile, but it doesn't know you exist. So that creates some extra complexity, but on the other hand, it also brings so many opportunities and beautiful ways of looking for something you didn't know that could also be very empowering. Common mistakes part 2. Same more elements and holding up, because in 10 minutes we will be moving to the Q&A. Another element that I see common in people looking for jobs, especially in Brussels, is to have a limited view only on Eurobrussels and Euractiv, or those websites where you normally would find applications. Again, there's absolutely nothing wrong with Eurobrussels and Euractiv. The only problem there is that it's very crowded. So when you look at an application that was already posted for a few weeks on a very popular website, you might as well be in a competition with 400 or 500 other people at best. Which means that, of course, if you find something you really, really like on those websites, you should go for it. But on the other hand, you might, want to stand up in this crowd. You don't want to be necessarily, going through this whole maze. So what you can do? Well, a good way of trying to escape the crowd is in fact working with spontaneous applications. Another way of using different elements than the one that are usually used is a very intense and strong understanding of how LinkedIn works. I think LinkedIn is perhaps the biggest gift to job seekers in the 21st century. LinkedIn is absolutely incredible. For those of you who are not on LinkedIn, I highly recommend you to be there, not necessarily because you can get information, but because you can also relate to people. Especially if, especially for those of you studying social sciences, our career path is less obvious than other professions. No, if you study medicine, you've seen a doctor before. If you study law, you've seen a lawyer before. If you study political science, you can become anything between a diplomat and a politician. So going through LinkedIn, going through people's background also gives you an idea of how these people got that position, what made them to the place where they are, what kind of education they had, what kind of profile they had. So it also helps you to connect and resonate with some professionals, which one day might be indeed yourself. Another thing that is absolutely incredible of LinkedIn is that for those of you who don't have it already, the premium account is free for the first month. And so you can immediately go with a lot of extra features and pay nothing. Some of these extra features are particularly interesting, and one being the emails. The emails allows you to use between 10 and 15 straight email to anyone. So imagine you really want to work for Deloitte. How about writing directly to the head of the HR of Deloitte on LinkedIn tomorrow? How about writing to the senior manager public policy Deloitte tomorrow? Straight with an email. That's a great way to bridge the gap and go straight to a decision maker without passing through an application, without passing through HR, without passing through the admin. Another very interesting feature that you might already be familiar with is easy apply. There are certain jobs in LinkedIn that are easy applicable, meaning that you apply with a click without going through lengthy processes and without going through many of those systems where you need to feed with a lot of information, your CV, your cover letter. You can just click and you're in. This is an immense opportunity because you can really beef up your the number of applications you're sending every day or every week, and also give you an opportunity to be faster in the process. So I think something like LinkedIn could really support and complement, not necessarily replace, but complement your job seeking, especially if you're only used to be doing this online or through website. As you might have figured by now, I'm a gigantic supporter of spontaneous application. To be fair with you, this is how I got any job I ever had since I'm alive. I'm a big proponent of spontaneous application because they work. A good spontaneous application sent the right day to the right person with a fair follow-up can open immense possibilities, not necessarily for work, but also from a genuine, personal perspective. For those of you who are really passionate of something, or for those of you who really like a company a lot, why wasting time expecting for, waiting for an application or hoping that someday a position will open? Go, contact and call. Perhaps not necessarily by, you don't want to spam, but on the other hand, it's always nice to receive an interesting email from an interested person that really praise you for your job. If you would be a manager one day and you receive an email from a young graduate from Leuven that is really, really absolutely interested in what you're doing, you will be the first one to answer. So, you're opening more possibilities by simply letting go. If there are certain things you really, really like, just go with it and see how it's like to work there. So spontaneous application should be the bulk of your job seeking process because they give you a chance to learn about your market, because they give you a chance to talk to someone who might be interested in giving you information, because might actually get you a job. So for all these reasons, spontaneous applications are just a great way to communicate your interest towards something. I saw someone answering that in the previous Menti that you'd like to work for Bayer. Fantastic. All Bayer employees are on LinkedIn. Why don't you contact them? Why don't you contact them directly? Why perhaps not sending an email by sending a straight message? You know, every corporate email or every email in general, it's usually name.surname@company.something. Try to play around with that. If it's a job you truly aspire to, this is one of the best way to just give away and to give you a chance that you might need. When sending those spontaneous applications, always try to avoid HR for obvious reason. Obviously, there are many applications out there, and I've seen also in companies I work with, even for some unpaid positions, you might receive a few hundreds email. Therefore, HR's job is to find problems with your application. HR's job, given the high volume of application, is to discard you as soon as possible. That's why you don't necessarily have to connect with HR if you really or strongly want a job or a position. Just go talk directly to the CEO. Just go talk directly to the senior that is responsible for the unit or the division you're interested in. Or just go to an executive, which are these people that have the actual power of signing your contract. This is a great way to jump the line, go straight to the person that may be your boss. And it's also a great opportunity to shine and to show yourself to someone you're actually interested in. Another point, and this is of course only interesting for those of you who are now currently enrolled in university. Why don't you use your traineeship or your thesis strategically? Of course, you have perhaps an argument or a subject or a topic you really are interested in, but have you considered using a company's data to further your position with that company later on? I've seen this countless times. I've seen university students contacting organizations, any kind of organization, private, but also public, even politician, contacting organization, expressing interest in what the organizations or the politicians were doing, and then say, you know, I have a thesis to write. Would it be interesting if I would be writing something about a product or something about a policy you're interested in? And then you already start to establish a strategic partnership with someone that might be your next employer immediately after, or someone that might give you a strong kickstart or kick-starting position for a similar company later on. And the same thing happens with thesis. You know, both traineeships or thesis are a great opportunity to engage with high-end company as early as possible. I think you have figured yourself, but in your traineeship capacity as a trainee, you have a higher chance of being hired than when you are junior or mid-level position. So you're more likely to get the position you always wanted simply by asking and to proposing yourself for a specific study, thesis, or traineeship than when you're out of the university. So consider using your traineeship or your thesis in a strategic way so that it can help and be functional for your next job after that. Last but not least, I think people are a bit scared of asking information. If you really like a position, why don't you ask people working there, how is it like? Feel free to contact anyone which could be interesting for a certain job. Let's imagine you're preparing an application for IBM. Fantastic, IBM is absolutely huge. So you can definitely find someone that is willing to talk. Maybe someone that is working in an office you're applying for. And you could say, you know, I'm a young applicant. I'm currently preparing an application for IBM. Would you like to have a virtual coffee and tell me how is it like to work there? Who's going to say no? So the way in which you approach a potential ally or a potential employer or a future colleague can also support you in the application process. You get important intelligence or extra information that you will not find on a website. And also you might make a friend and you might be able to create a connection that could be useful during or after a traineeship or a job experience. Okay. There is possibly a lot to unpack, and apologize for having been very quick or brief on topics or themes that might require actually a lot of discussion. I am now looking at the chat for those of you who have been writing there, and also From now until the next 15 minutes, this is Q&A. It's free for all. Feel free to talk, raise questions, or just share your comment. Any comment?
Hey, Andrea. Thanks for the sharing. I would like to ask one question because you emphasize on spontaneous application a lot, but I just jumped in this time. So do you have any place that allow me to explore what is spontaneous application myself? Because that is a concept that I didn't really heard before. Yeah.
There are no particular suggestion. If you really like a company, just write them straight away.
Okay. So
write to the CEO, write to the person who might be responsible for something you'll be working on. You present yourself. Maybe you can have a 15 minutes presentation or introduction. And then the next time a position will be open, guess what? You will be the first one to be called.
Thanks.
I'm now reading through the chat box. Okay. So, Lucy, I want to know what it means when HR doesn't give you any feedback for a long time. Well, have you contacted HR? HR, they are super busy. So don't expect them to be your best friend. However, if this is application you really strongly feel about, just call them, give them a call, send a follow-up, see what's up with the application. It's always good to establish a relation even with HR. Florentin, it can be overwhelming if we have to send 20 applications a day in an area that ask you specific cover letter and that you want to go in right away. In my case, in politics NGOs. I disagree, perhaps because my experience is in politics NGOs. You don't have to write a cover letter for anyone, especially if it's a spontaneous application. If it's a current application that does require a cover letter, of course, by no means you will have to provide that. But if you send 20 a day for a week, and you only have to do it once, you greatly increase your chances of success, and you can also target all those organizations or political organizations that are not looking in this very moment. So it is true that it's overwhelming to send 20 applications a day, but you don't have to do it forever. You only need to do it for 2 weeks. And that will also give you the speed you need because you don't have to go so specific on a cover letter. If only send a short text, usually in a spontaneous application, less is more. So 100 words should suffice, and a CV, of course. And that just gives you an excuse to establish a conversation that might give you further information. Smithson, what confuses me is that if a student is, let's say, science like mathematics or physics, what will be the companies one should focus on? Any company has strong needs in that area. Of course, some companies might be more interested than others, engineering companies, consultancies. From your comment, I have the feeling you might not have had a lot of chances to study your market. Choose a topic. It can be transport or waterways or AI, or choose a topic you like and start by Googling and start to see which companies are active in those specific areas in your region. And if you don't think you find sufficient information, ask them. Ask an expert in IBM what a young graduate in math or physics should be doing with his or her CV. Feel free to ask information and suggestion to people that are older than you and people that you think might be supportive. What will be opportunity if I'm a student in Brussels and got an opportunity in the Netherlands? Is there any visa problem or any other option to join that company in the Netherlands? I can join the company having 16 experience on my bachelor's degree. I don't feel I have sufficient elements to have a fair or sharp answer. It could be that your permit should be working all 27 EU countries, but I'm not an expert in that, so let not me make mistake. Natasha, I am new to the concept of networking, make a lot of connection on LinkedIn. I already heavily use it for finding job opportunities. Do you have any tips on effective using email to improve my prospect at a particular company for a particular job? I'm worried it might come off as to press CV and email and measure my prospect for that job. I understand your concern. It's absolutely true. My tip is be short and specific. If you're short and specific, you will not be spamming. You can simply say the truth. I'm applying for this particular job. I would like to know more about the company. Would you be happy to have a coffee at your earliest convenience? People are pressed if you approach them with unrealistic requests and very long text. Be short and be targeted. and all those emails will be well spent. Fair to say, not everyone is as active on LinkedIn as you expect. So sometimes you send emails and nobody answers back. By checking also the user you're trying to target activity on LinkedIn, you will figure if this is a person that posts regularly, if it goes on LinkedIn once a month, or if he posts every 5 minutes. Would you say that inside programs are attracting only to companies? I don't know what an inside programs are. Feel free to give me more information. I've heard nothing will happen on hiring in December. Is it true? Should I keep applying this month or should I wait till January? Just apply as soon as possible. Sometimes, again, a rule of thumb that can change. There is an average of 3 months from when you start the application process. So the earlier, the better. Also, again, try to focus on quantity next to quality. Try to really, increase the number of applications you're working with and try to track them down. If you don't know what happened with one of the applications you sent, call, engage, write an email. I feel overwhelmed when the job requirements are so long and so specific, they're really hard to fit, biology and R&D. Do you think it's still worth to apply even though? Absolutely, yes. Requirement for jobs, and please, again, allow a brutal generalization. On average, sometimes requirements you find in a job description are there to deter a large number of applicants. If you are looking for a colleague and if you are opening a position and you receive 2,000 emails, you don't want to be in that spot. So you try to be as specific and lengthy as possible so that some of those requirements might deter extra applicants. From an HR perspective, and this is absolutely true, ask any HR specialist you know, between 30 and 40% of incoming applications are wrong, are either out of target, are either out of requirement, and have been sent by people that don't work in the same country, they come from different backgrounds. So in fact, the number of targeted and well-crafted applications is smaller than you think. So don't let yourself be bumped out by applications or requirements if you really want that job. If you're just applying because you feel like applying, then yes, try to focus on what you like, and once you find what you like, try to find any possible player that deals with that topic. What type of CV works better in general? Is it better to use a creative format or Canva, or just stick to the plain and simple CV? It depends who's the recipient. European institutions really work with Europass, which is a very boring and admin bureaucratic way of writing a CV. If you're a creative and you are applying for a communication position, then yeah, you will be expected to be creative. I think the easiest way is to keep it short. If it's possible, keep it in 1 page. If you really need to express other elements of your profile, use 2 pages or 3. Usually on average, someone spends maximum 20 seconds on a CV. So the less is more. You mentioned focusing only on Big 4 in the world of business and mentioned second page of a website. I didn't catch it. Please mention again. No, that, especially for those who work in business or business administration, you might be very familiar with the Big 4, but you might not be familiar with the many hundreds of other consultancies or auditing companies that are out there. And you don't usually find them if you don't look for them. So it could be interesting to do a specific desk research on that, or to ask people or people, fresh contacts, which are the companies that an applicant like you could be interested in. What is your idea about geology job position in Belgium? I'm afraid I don't have any elements to answer this question. In inside program, large compilation lasts usually 1-2 weeks, often in spring. Yeah, that could be an opportunity. Any tips for making an interesting cover letter, especially for recent graduates with little job experience? I've seen many entry-level jobs that ask for at least 1 year experience. I want to specify the different courses that I've learned and are related to the job. Okay, that's a good point. Natasha, in a cover letter, you might be tempted to explain who you are and why you're perfect. You're free to do so. Another way is to see, why don't you tell me in your cover letter why that job specifically, why that company specifically, why you really work for Google and not for Amazon, why you really want to work for Google and not for IBM. So, a cover letter is an opportunity to say something about you and why you find a position, an area, a profession so much interesting. Of course, you can tell about your previous experience, but you have the CV for that. The cover letter should be, CV is what you've done. A cover letter is what you want to do. So perhaps you can use the cover letter to explain how a specific job can be absolutely important and functional to your career. Let's imagine you want to work at Google, so why don't you say in a cover letter, working at Google gives you an opportunity to become the professional of IT I always dreamt to become one day. So that also gives some elements to the employer. Why us? And this is usually one of the questions that comes up during job interview anyway. Why us? Why you're applying to me? And you can't just go and say, I sent 200 applications, you are the only one who answered. No, you need to give a reason experience, a reason motivation for why you chose that employer and not someone else. I'm a future master's student who will be studying in Belgium. Any not technical usually required to improve, boost my chance of getting a good job internship. Yes, Yusuf, quantity and quality at the same time. Work with many applications. You will see a dramatic improvement of your chances in a matter of days. A good average is 20 a day, but again, if you keep a good rhythm, try not to work with less than 100 applications, because otherwise it means you haven't done sufficient study and sufficient mapping to see what's out there. Which are consultancy for mechanical engineering in Belgium? Man, I have no idea. But have you Googled that? And if you don't feel you found sufficient information, have you considered contacting consultants in mechanical engineer positions that could give you more contact, that could give you email addresses, or can give you some ideas on how to look forward? Is there any specific standard for CV in the EU for consulting firms? No. Most of the info is about US or UK. No, there is no silver bullet. Any CV is good as long as it's readable and it's not too text dense. Okay. Anyone feels like sharing? Yes, it's lobby facts. And this is for consultants in Brussels. Of course, you know already Glassdoor. Glassdoor is absolutely fantastic. It's like Facebook for companies, and you can have a strong point of view on which companies are active where, and you can also find which are the companies that score best in a specific region. So if you've never seen Glassdoor, I highly recommend to complement your LinkedIn activity with your Glassdoor. I'm very mindful of the time, so I don't want to keep anyone that is busy or has other obligation, but I'm still here available for questions. Any other burning comments? Feel free to speak up. No comments? Was I that clear? I doubt.
Thank you, Andrea. Could I please make a quick question?
Please.
Thank you really much for your presentation. It was really eye-opening and really helpful to see all this specific details. My question is, because now I'm a bit confused about what, so I feel like I would like to specialize in political science in my third bachelor year. For the master's, I'm a bit unsure, maybe whether I should switch career trajectory to sales, etc. I don't think so, but maybe, but then I also my personal interest is in international affairs, or maybe something like public administration. It's just revolving around these. So I just want to gain a quick view of what are the institutions that are suited for these courses, and also something like College of Europe, but something more affordable and that is also seen as prestigious to employers. And how important is your institution's reputation when applying? Thank you.
I will speak through my experience. So just what I've been doing following a similar path. First of all, I recommend you at a certain point to specialize on something. We as political scientists are generalists. So we are, jack of all trades. I would say find yourself either a topic or a geographic area you like a lot. I'm an agri-food business guy. I've been doing agricultural food policies, nutritional policies, and this is my area, which means that if you ask me anything related to energy, I have no idea what's happening there. If you are more a geographic person, choose an area. You focus on Europe, you focus on Eastern Europe, you focus on India, you focus on Latin America. So start by finding a topics on areas you like more. And also my heart suggestion would be start from consultancies, because they are a fantastic gym. Because you become good in business, you become good in handling policies, and you also become good on the job. Of course, College of Europe is the best education you can get in Brussels-related jobs. And what you get from College of Europe is a fantastic network and crazy opportunities that are only for College of Europe people. So it's, of course, very indicated, but I wouldn't say that that's a must-have to have an international policy jobs in Brussels or anywhere else. I would say start by focusing on something, because political science is immense, public administration is immense. So choose a topic or choose an area and start from there.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Andrea.
Anyone else?
Yes, can I say something?
Please.
Yeah, so I'm more concerned about, because I just graduated for Leuven now in international politics, and my main area is around geopolitics in China and Japan specifically. And so I was wondering, you were talking about consultancy. Is there like a possibility to make something like, to say, let's be a consultant around this specific area for those organization or firma who are looking to understand the field or something like that?
Let me ask you a question first. Have you done your homework?
Sorry?
Have you done your homework?
What do you mean?
Have you Googled that to start with?
No, yeah, I've thought about that, because you brought the idea of consultancy right now. That's why.
I would say yes. Of course, there are countless organizations that have that capacity. Don't forget that Brussels or Belgium is a hub for many international companies. So why don't you start by sending a spontaneous application to Fujitsu or to Sony or to Alibaba or Tencent. So yeah, so try to, job seeking is a proactive exercise. You can wait for the perfect application to land from sky and be the right guy at the perfect moment, or you can be proactive and go and make that opportunity for yourself. If you know you already have an area of expertise, if you know you're interested in geopolitics, China and Japan, go straight for it. See which are the actors that are shaping that area. Look for companies that work in that areas. Look in think tank that work in that areas. Look for politicians that work with China or Japan relationship. Look for consultancy that work in that area. Look for international organizations or NGO that work in that area. So start by searching, playing good old searching, and I would suggest you to segment your markets in different actors. So, try to find the 20 best corporations that work in China-Japan EU relations. And then the 20 best consultancy, the 20 politicians, the 20 think tanks, the 20 NGO. You get to 100, you send 100 applications, in January you're working.
Okay, thank you very much.
Natasha, I've heard of some consultancy agencies that help immigrants secure jobs in Europe, for example, that I know they charge a bit and as expected. I wanted to ask if it's really worth it, if it's better to apply for jobs yourself and not via those agencies. You're taking it from far. You can just go and apply. I think this element of applying proactively, it's lacking. So once you become better at it, you will find it very easy and you don't necessarily need an agency unless the job you're looking for is so specific that only specialized agency can provide. I'll give you an example. In the past, I've been working with headhunters who are only working on PhD and postdoc in biotech. So their job is to sort incoming and outcoming application from those very specific target group. So agencies or headhunters or HR agency are useful, especially if the job you're looking for is highly specialized. But for most of purposes and for entry level, just go out there and make yourself heard. Try to establish a contact. Can you provide the mentor website? Yes, it's in the next slide. The mentor with pharma companies. That's for PhD though. I don't know if you're already at that stage. Islan, I would like to share this recording with a friend. Where would this recording be available? I think on YouTube, on Rotaract, but the guys from Rotaract will tell you more. Monica, just don't to bore anyone else, just feel free to write me on LinkedIn. I will share the contact there. Harsh, what is the right time to apply for a job while studying master in electromechanical engineering job in Europe? The answer is as soon as possible. The earlier you know what's out there, the earlier you understand how your master can suit your next step. I don't know where you are in your master, but for example, if you haven't choose a topic for your thesis or you haven't had your internship, I highly recommend you to look for company first and then to finish your master in due time. Yeah, so if you're in the final year, then you start as soon as possible. You know, you can be working, you can, you know, put your blood, sweat, and tears on a thesis that nobody's interested in, or you can get a companies you like, ask them if you can write a thesis with them, and you get work. Yeah. Perfect. Any other burning comment or question? Really feel free to abuse of my time. I'm here for you. But speak up if you must. Nothing? Okay. Is it right having 6 years of experience with the internship in the industry? No, sorry, Harsh, I didn't know what was your background. But everything I said up until now, it's still valid. Meaning that spontaneous application should be your bread and butter, and a strong and intimate knowledge of the companies and the operators that work in your field should be the basic. That is more important than you finish the master on time, my humble opinion, but this is just my humble opinion. Okay, very well. So let me wrap it up with some general and sharp concluding elements. Let me also quickly present Team for Jobs, which is the associations I work with, and they are fantastic. They support people of any kind, from any walk of life, into getting a job in Brussels. They are highly specialized, so depending on what kind of professions you're looking for, they will be most surely able to connect you with the right mentor, with the right support. If you're looking for EU-related jobs or jobs related to the institution or the Brussels bubble, you may even end up working with me. So that will be a pleasure. Now, let me conclude this very interesting session. And again, guys, thank you for bearing with me and having given me the chance to share some of these thoughts. I would start from taking a quick step back. And I would just simply say that looking for a job is a proactive exercise. Even before Corona, many people were hiding behind emails. That's okay, that's expected, but this is not how you will get the job you really, really want. You must be proactive. You need to ask, you need to engage, you need to call, you need to enter in conversation with those employers you're interested in. You need to enter in conversation with the employees of the companies you're interested in. You need to ask suggestion to people that are older than you. You need to ask suggestion to people you like on LinkedIn. In any case, looking for information and looking for the jobs you like is a matter of proactiveness. So don't hide behind an email, pick up the phone and give a call. Or if you don't feel like it, get an email address, just be yourself, but be proactive. It's important that you are visible in the network of people that might be interested in you. For those of you who are at the entry level or at the beginning of their professional experience, choose wisely how you leave the university to the job market, because your capacity of intern or your capacity of young graduate is precious. The chances of you getting an interesting job as an intern are way higher than when you're a completed professional. So I know that sometimes people and students have the pressure to finish as soon as possible with the highest grade, fantastic, but don't forget that after that, also what's coming after is as important, if not more important, than concluding your studies with the highest mark and on time. Take your time to prepare for job market. Take your time to investigate which companies are out there. Take your time to know them by name, to see where they're located, to see how they look like, how their bosses or top manager look like. Go and stalk them on LinkedIn. Go and search for information. It's publicly out there and it's there for you. Last but not least, and this is perhaps the most general of my comment, the job market has completely changed in the past 5 to 10 years. So don't feel threatened by this process. Don't feel concerned by how difficult this is, because most likely, and this is not something that I wish, but could be, most likely you'll be looking for a job again and again throughout your career. You might be looking for jobs when you're 30, you won't be looking for a job when you're 40, you won't be looking for a job when you're 50. The job market has completely transformed, especially in Europe. So befriend job-seeking skills. Don't panic. Realize that this is simply how the job market is, and that you might be asked to change job and to change specialization over and over. I myself, I changed again job 6 months ago, and it was tough. It was difficult, but it was possible, and with the right approach and the right energy, that can be done. So this is just the first step, or one of your first steps in a way longer process, and you might be going back to this step again in the future. So don't be too worried, be bold and go for what you're really interested in. At this point, I would like to thank you very much for your time and for having bear with me. I am at your disposal. Should you have any further question, feel free to add me on LinkedIn. Feel free to add me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever you're using. If you're not on LinkedIn, I recommend you to be there. And if you're there, just connect. And of course, also our thanks go to Rotaract and to the fantastic group of organizer and executive that made this all possible, both on the practical level, but also the guys in marketing communication that did the promotion, and they were so kind to have me here. Thank you all. Don't be a stranger, and good luck.